They say courage is a weapon. But what if it wasn't? What if the strongest man on the field carried no rifle? What if resolve was louder than gunfire, and salvation came not from the barrel of a gun, but from hands steady under fire? That's not fantasy. That's not fiction. That's Desmond Doss, a medic who ran into hell, barefoot, unarmed, and unbroken, and pulled 75 men out of it. Call me Gage. Cole Braddock if you're pulling my service record. I'm the guardian of the WGAI-13 archives, cutting signal through the static of forgotten history. My beat? Philosophy forged under pressure. Stoicism tested by fire. Tonight, we're not talking about generals. We're not talking about orders barked across polished war rooms or battle plans drawn on marble tables. We're talking about one man, in the mud, in the smoke, on a ridge that wanted him dead, and he never lifted a weapon. After Marcus Aurelius, after Batman, after Bass Reeves, I went searching the archives for another kind of line, not drawn in ink, not enforced by badge or gun, but walked, barefoot, under fire, with no backup but faith and will. Deep in the classified files, I found a name that stopped me cold. A dispatch from the Pacific Theater barely flagged in the official records. Desmond Thomas Doss, combat medic, 77th Infantry Division, Okinawa Campaign. They called him a coward before they shipped out, called him a hero when they came home. But the man himself, he just called it duty. If this cuts through the noise, if you've ever held your ground without striking back, lock onto the signal, share the frequency, send it to anyone who thinks strength requires violence. This isn't about pacifism as philosophy. This is about stoicism in action. Pure, tested, unbreakable. You want more? Signal boost. Mark the coordinates. Because some fights aren't won with fists, and some warriors never need a blade. We're not just preserving stories here. We're preserving proof that virtue under pressure doesn't require compromise. Lynchburg, Virginia, 1919. Desmond Thomas Doss, born into a world still bleeding from the Great War. His father, William, carried the war home with him. Shell shock, nightmares, a violent temper that erupted without warning. The kind of rage that comes from seeing too much, losing too much, carrying too much. One night, young Desmond watched his father pull a gun on his own brother during a family argument. Watched his mother step between them, watched her take that weapon and hide it where it couldn't hurt anyone. That moment carved itself into the boy's mind. Violence begets violence. Someone has to break the cycle. The Doss family found their anchor in faith. Seventh-day Adventists. Sabbath observers. People who believed the Ten Commandments weren't suggestions. Thou shalt not kill. For most people, that's flexible, contextual, open to interpretation when the stakes get high enough. For Desmond Doss, it was absolute. He grew up working with his hands. Carpenter, builder. The kind of man who fixed things instead of breaking them. Married Dorothy Shute in 1942. A quiet life. A peaceful life. Then Pearl Harbor happened. December 7, 1941. The world caught fire, and America was dragged into the furnace. Desmond could have claimed conscientious objector status. Could have stayed home. Kept building. Kept fixing. Kept his hands clean. Instead, he walked into the recruitment office and enlisted. I want to serve, he told them. I just won't kill. They didn't understand. Combat medic was one thing. But refusing to carry a weapon? Refusing to train with weapons? That was something else entirely. How can you protect your fellow soldiers if you won't fight? They asked. I'll protect them, he said. Just not that way. Boot camp at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Hell designed to break men down and build soldiers up. Tried to break Desmond first. His drill sergeants called him coward, yellow, worthless. His fellow recruits beat him, stole from him, made his life a constant misery. They put him on KP duty every night. Made him scrub latrines while others slept. Denied him leave. Denied him basic privileges. They tried to court-martial him for refusing to drill with weapons. But Desmond didn't break. Didn't fight back. Didn't even raise his voice in anger. He kept showing up. Kept training. Kept studying field medicine. Kept praying. When the court ruled he had the right to serve without carrying weapons, they shipped him out with the 77th Infantry Division. First stop, Guam. Then Leyte in the Philippines. Combat zones where theory meets reality. And most theory doesn't survive. But Desmond did. More than survived. He excelled. Under fire, He was calm, precise, fearless in ways that had nothing to do with weapons and everything to do with will. He treated wounds while bullets flew overhead, crawled through battlefields to reach the injured, carried men to safety who outweighed him by 50 pounds. His unit began to understand. This wasn't cowardice. This was something else entirely. This was discipline so pure it looked like madness to anyone who hadn't achieved it. Then came Okinawa, April 1945. The last major battle of the Pacific War. Japanese were dug in, desperate, and willing to die for every inch of ground. And in the middle of that hell was a 400-foot escarpment the Americans called Hacksaw Ridge. Sheer cliff face, heavily fortified, honeycombed with caves and tunnels, the kind of position that ate attacking forces alive. The 77th had to take it. April 29th. First assault. They climbed rope ladders and cargo nets, fought their way to the top, established a foothold. Then the counterattack came. Machine guns, mortars, artillery, grenades. Every weapon the Japanese could bring to bear concentrated on that ridge. The Americans were cut to pieces. Orders came down to retreat, fall back, regroup. When they counted heads at the bottom, 75 men were missing. Wounded, dying, trapped on top of that ridge with no way down. The unit prepared to write them off. Acceptable losses. Part of war. Desmond Doss had other ideas. While his unit regrouped below, he stayed on top, alone, unarmed, in the dark. He moved from wounded man to wounded man, dragging them to the edge of the cliff, rigging rope systems to lower them to safety, under constant fire, through smoke and explosions, with nothing but a medic kit and unshakable will. For each man he found, he whispered the same prayer. Lord, let me get one more wounded soldier, one more life saved, one more reason to keep going when every rational impulse screamed at him to run. He treated sucking chest wounds with his bare hands, made tourniquets from torn uniforms, splinted broken bones with rifle stocks and bayonets. When he ran out of rope, he used telephone wire. When he ran out of wire, he used vines. For 12 hours he worked alone on that ridge. 12 hours of continuous combat, continuous danger, continuous choice. Save one more. Just one more. By dawn, he had lowered 75 men to safety. 75 soldiers who would have died if Desmond Doss had followed orders and retreated. When his unit finally fought their way back up the ridge, they found Desmond still there, still working, still saving lives. That's when they understood. This wasn't about religion. This wasn't about politics or philosophy or personal belief. This was about something deeper, something that doesn't have a name in most languages. The willingness to absorb infinite punishment in service of principle. To endure anything, sacrifice anything, risk anything for what you know is right. The Stoics had a word for it. Virtue. Not the Sunday school version. The version that bleeds. 3 weeks later, Desmond was wounded by shrapnel from a grenade. Instead of calling for help, he treated his own wounds and waited 5 hours for a litter team. When they finally came for him, he saw another soldier wounded worse than he was, rolled off his own stretcher, gave it to the other man, crawled 300 yards to the aid station. That's not human. That's something beyond human, something forged by pressure into a shape that can't be broken. President Harry Truman awarded him the Medal of Honor on October 12, 1945, first conscientious objector to receive the nation's highest military decoration. The citation read, "He was a company aid man when the 1st Battalion assaulted a jagged escarpment 400 feet high. Our troops gained the summit. A heavy concentration of artillery, mortar and machine gun fire crashed into them, inflicting approximately 75 casualties and driving the others back." PFC. Doss refused to seek cover and remained in the fire-swept area with the many stricken, carrying them one by one to the edge of the escarpment, and there lowering them on a rope-supported litter down the face of a cliff to friendly hands. But that's just words on paper. The reality was messier, bloodier, more painful than any citation could capture. Desmond Doss proved something that needed proving, that strength doesn't require violence, that courage doesn't need weapons, that the highest form of warfare is the war against your own limitations. See, I've studied warriors across every timeline. Soldiers who held impossible lines. Operators who worked alone in hostile territory. Men who carried impossible burdens and never broke under the weight. Desmond Doss belongs in that company. Not because of his Medal of Honor. Not because of the 75 lives he saved. Because of how he saved them. He didn't overcome his principles under pressure. He used them as his foundation. His strength came from knowing exactly who he was and exactly what he stood for. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Desmond couldn't control the war. Couldn't control the artillery raining down on Hacksaw Ridge. Couldn't control the fear, the pain, the chaos surrounding him. But he could control his response. His actions. His commitment to the mission he'd chosen for himself. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Every day, Desmond was surrounded by violence. By men whose job was killing. By a system designed to turn human beings into weapons. He could have become like them. Could have decided that survival required compromise. That war made pacifism impossible. Instead, he became something else. Something that proved peace could be fiercer than violence when properly applied. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Desmond didn't debate the ethics of war. Didn't write treatises on pacifism. Didn't try to convert others to his way of thinking. He just lived it. Under the worst possible conditions. When living it could get him killed. That's applied philosophy. That's Stoicism tested by fire and proven unbreakable. I've known medics. Real ones. The kind who run toward gunfire while everyone else runs away. They're a special breed, wired differently than the rest of us. But Desmond was different even among the different. He didn't just risk his life for others. He built his entire identity around it. His weapon wasn't a rifle. It was his refusal to use one. His armor wasn't steel. It was his absolute certainty that he was doing exactly what he was meant to do. That kind of clarity is rare. That kind of commitment is rarer. That kind of courage? That's the rarest thing of all. He proved that virtue under pressure doesn't require compromise. That principle can be practical. That the highest form of strength is the strength to remain yourself when everything around you is trying to change you. Desmond Doss died in 2006. Buried in Chattanooga National Cemetery with full military honors. But what he proved, that's still alive, still operating, still showing up every time someone chooses the harder path because it's the right path. Desmond Doss didn't write philosophy, but he lived it. Every step up that cliff, every wounded soldier he carried, every prayer he whispered under fire. He didn't quote the Stoics, he embodied them. In the most hostile environment imaginable, under conditions that would break most men before they'd had time to think about principle. No cameras, no audience, no guarantee that anyone would ever know what he did or why he did it. Just a man with a mission, carrying it out because it needed carrying out. A stoic in a medic's helmet. A warrior who never raised his hand in anger. Uncompromising. Unbreakable. Unstoppable. So if this story steadied your aim, if it reminded you that strength doesn't always strike, that courage doesn't always kill, that the truest victories are won without firing a shot, then carry it forward. Signal boost. Pass the word. Share it with anyone who thinks peace is passive, that restraint is weakness, that gentleness can't be fierce. Because Desmond Doss proved otherwise. Every life he saved, every principle he maintained, every step he took toward danger when every instinct screamed at him to run. We keep these stories alive not because they're inspiring. We keep them alive because they're necessary. Because in a world that teaches us strength comes from violence, we need proof that the opposite is true. Desmond Doss was that proof. Walking, breathing, bleeding proof that the unarmed line is the strongest line of all. The unarmed line. Desmond Doss, medic, believer, stoic. Next time, we track another soul who stood fast when surrender would have been easier. This is Gage, Cole Braddock, guardian of the WGAI 13 archives. Hold the line, even if your hands are empty, especially then, always.